Mr. Phil Topness, who is here with us today. Phil, sorry about the technical difficulties. Is my
I was
channel...
having a great time in the chat.
It happens more often than not, sadly. But you know, I should hire the same guy that you usually have in the PowerCard Live videos. That would be
amazing.
Very good.
You probably do need. It's nice to have someone running it behind the scenes for sure.
Okay.
Like, just to let you know, Phil, like Mitch always likes to start streams with some emotion to them, like, you know, no audio, no video, and that kind of stuff. So it's part of the show.
Yes. Bring it in gradually.
It's part of the show.
Yes, it's like some kind of signature or something like that. Yeah, it is what it is. Okay, but I see people are sending messages in the chat, so I think this is working. This is working nicely now. And well, first of all, Phil, Andres, thank you for being here. How are you?
I'm well.
I'll let the guest start always that you asked that question to both of us.
I'm doing well. For me, it's not 10 p.m. too, so I'm you know.
That's right.
Yeah.
What time is it over there, Phil?
4 p.m. Yeah.
4 p.m.
Okay, so I'll address the audience in Spanish because they are kind of used to it. Phil knows a lot about Spanish. He really can speak Spanish, but he doesn't want to brag about it, so we're gonna do it in English. A la audiencia de Cepa Code, bueno, primero de todo, disculpad por los problemas técnicos. Ya sabéis que si no hubiese problemas técnicos no sería el canal. Y nada, simplemente, bueno, pues tenemos a Phil Topness aquí. Espero que podáis seguirlo en inglés. Yo creo que la mayoría podéis entender inglés. Y en cualquiera de los casos, si no, supongo que luego en la grabación se puedan poner subtítulos. So, Phil, we usually do like casual chat, and it's not going to be an exception today. But at the same time, I don't want to lie to the audience, and I want to say that I have some questions ready for you, because this is a great chance for the channel, for the community behind this YouTube channel. And the first question, so people can follow along, is who is Phil Topness? Maybe someone is like, you know, not from this planet, and maybe doesn't know you. But apart from that, who is Phil Topness? And more important than that, do we need licensing to have Phil Topness in the channel today?
So, we don't talk about licensing.
Nacho. I want the bug now.
We don't. That's the rule number one. I was joking earlier when we were talking that you know, Andres and I worked together, and I think he's far more technical than I am. So I was going to ask him all of the questions, and then he would answer to me in English, then I would answer in English, then one of you would translate into Spanish. I guess this is one question that I can't ask on. Well, I mean, we probably could. It'd be interesting to see what Andres' answer was. Yeah, so I'm one of the folks on PowerCat, the customer advisory team for Power Platform. So as probably many of you know from seeing Andres on the show before, right, we're part of the engineering team, the team that actually builds Power Apps and Power Automate. And we work with the largest customers to help them on some pretty tough problems, and we tell their stories, and we host communities for our top customers as well, where we talk about what's coming and we learn from them. And we also build tools like the ALM Accelerator and the COE Starter Kit and that sort of thing. So that's the team I'm on. I started off doing Dynamics about 10 years ago. I remember the moment vividly. I joined this new team at that time, a small consulting company that Avanade bought, and walked into this room, and all these people were always talking about Microsoft CRM, and I was pro developer and did some other stuff. It's like, why are they so crazy about CRM? And then they trained us in the first 4 hours, and then they gave us 3 hours to build something. We presented it at the end of the day, and we had a working app, and I was like, this is amazing, right? And then I was that guy. People were like, why is he always talking about Microsoft CRM? Prior to that, I did a bunch of random things, whatever I found interesting. Yeah, so that's what I do. I've got 3 daughters that live all around the U.S. and in the U.K. and live here near Washington, D.C. with my wife.
All right, that's great. That's great. CRM, good old days.
Good old days, XRM, yeah.
Okay, but you already said what's the PowerCat, but one thing that comes to mind is, okay, so the engineering people are like also like doing some of the marketing stuff in the YouTube channel and stuff. I think that's great on one side, because when you hear people that are really behind the product telling you how things are done, it's great. It gives you a lot of confidence, and they are talking about things they really know. And how this team was assembled, like is assembled by picking people with I don't know, maybe speech skills, or people who are like really into sharing, or how do you manage to bring new members to the team?
Yeah, the team that we hire at PowerCat is definitely a pretty interesting team, right? We're a global team, right? We've got people in pretty much we cover all time zones, because we have to cover every customer globally. So we are looking for kind of the best people around the world, and we try to be the best place for them to work. That's one of our goals. And so everyone you see on PowerCat, even if they're not talking about technology, they know the platform deeply, right? That's kind of one of our foundational things. And so You have to know Canvas apps and Dataverse and model-driven apps. And but then we all, everyone has to be able to make videos, write documents, and all that, and be able to share what we learn. And so it is kind of this interesting mix of skills, but that's also part of what makes the job fun, I think. I don't know. What do you think, Andres?
I'm going to mute myself. Sorry. I was typing there and I didn't want the typing notes, but yeah, no, fully agree. 100%. Yeah. That's the interesting part of being part of the PowerCat team, that we get access to somehow all the fun tech stuff that the product team drives, but at the same time we get to experiment with other bits and bobs, which is the good thing. And we get to talk to customers that are actually using the technology at the end of the day, right? So we get probably the best of all sides of this role somehow. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, go ahead.
Not to say obviously that Phil, I'm not sure. I don't think he said, but he's the person that is running or managing the whole PowerCat team in EMEA, which didn't exist a year and a half. Well, no, I mean it's been a while. It's been here for a while because we had Manuela, who's been a long time runner in the PowerCat team, but recently the Europe set of things has grown considerably to the point where part of our leadership decided that there was a need to have someone managing the entire EMEA team, and that's Phil. Without Phil, it wouldn't be possible. I'm not saying that because he's my manager, by the way, but obviously it would not be. It would certainly not be possible without him, Phil. So certainly that helps a lot.
Okay. Since we are being honest here, I want to say on a side note, especially to my employer, that I didn't ask that question on how the PowerCat team grows because I was intending to apply. It was just out of curiosity. So rest assured. Okay, that's great. That's great because I think everybody loves what you do on, especially on the YouTube channel, on the Microsoft Power Platform YouTube channel. We really find good pieces of content there. Okay. I want to.
Nacho?
Yes.
Nacho, sorry to interrupt you. They're saying that the chat is not refreshing in the video stream.
Yes, I know. On the video stream is not refreshing, but I'll try to solve it in the meantime when we stream. Yeah, but cool. Like the chat is working not on screen, but it's working on the devices. So I'm okay with that. In the meantime, I want to go ahead because we don't. I would like to ask you so many questions, and I really want to go ahead with the good part of it. And one of the things I've been thinking today and I discussed with Andres a few hours ago, is about there is a potential misconception that we see in the Spanish market. Maybe this is something local or not, you tell me, about low code not being suitable for critical work streams. I don't know if this has presented to you in the past. Can you demystify this? Like maybe sharing some examples of what you have seen companies do in America around critical work streams?
Yeah, I think, that is not just a perception in the Spanish market, right? That's a question that Andres and I and our team members get pretty much weekly, right? One of the ways I like to look at it, like I've got customers with, we all do, right? Customers with 100,000 or more users that, like one of them replaced an Angular app with a Power app, used up to the CEO, right? Used every day, getting thousands of sessions an hour. And one of the reasons they did that is because they could move faster, and they think they're building new screens 4 times faster than they did in Angular, right? So there's a velocity component, like how fast can you build? But the real part of the question is like, is Power App suitable for these types of big enterprise apps? And when you look at the fundamentals, like if you look at a Power App, a Canvas app, or even a model-driven app, it is a React app, right? It is doing a lot of the same things that you would build in your own app, right? And then we publish them, and when you publish that Canvas app, right, it gets distributed to a content delivery network across the world so that it is near to where the users are. And so there's a lot of things that you would do in your own React app that we are already doing. We have very, very smart people for performance and security and all that are building this. We're just trying to make it easy to build. And I think the same goes for Dataverse too, right? If you look at Dataverse, it's Azure SQL under the covers with an API layer for security. A lot of the same stuff that you would end up building on your own if you were going to build an app on top of a database.
Yeah, maybe the problem comes with the lack of awareness of this working behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, some of the stuff we're trying to expose on the on PowerCat Live for sure.
Okay. Andres, I don't know if you have any questions for Phil. He's your boss, so he's your boss, so beware.
I have one. The first questions for you, Phil, in the chat are just popping out. One of them was like, if you had more children today, I'm not saying you're going to do what they're asking. It's like, would you teach them Power Apps or C# today?
So I can. So two answers to this. So I have 3 daughters. They're all adults. So to tell you how much my daughters know about Power Apps, although it's changing, I think in one of them. Like around the dinner table, we talk about like, you know, what we all do, and I talk about Power Apps. And one of my daughters, when she first got a real job and she had like, you know, Outlook and PowerPoint and all that kind of stuff, she came home at dinner and she's like, Dad, have you ever heard of Microsoft Automate? And I'm like, she's not talking about what I mean, this isn't, I didn't hear this right? I'm like, I mean, I'm wearing the shirt, right? So I'm like, I'm going to ask her, Emily, do you mean Power Automate? And she's like, yeah, that's it. I'm like, yeah, Emily, I've heard of Power Automate, right? So like anybody else, my daughters don't really listen to me, but my wife is learning Power Apps now. She's doing the Power Up program, which I think is powerup.microsoft.com, which is for people that are doing career switching. It's basically, you know, if you come in with no technical skills and they take you up through learning the entire platform and then building an app that you submit a video demo. She just completed it. So yeah. So I think, I mean, that's a great way to get started. There's so much information put together in this 12-week program, but it's a commitment.
Yeah, you remind me now. Adam Goldberg was in Zurich in the Microsoft Ignite the other month, and he said that I don't know if it was a daughter or a son coming to him and say, "Hey, this ChatGPT thing is so cool," and Adam said that, "Yeah, I went back to be cool for my kid for 10 minutes or so."
Yeah, it's very short-lived. Yeah,
indeed. Okay, so I would like to talk about because one of the questions is or one of the questions I often get in my channels, in comment sections, is how to get started. For instance, today this girl came to me and said, how can I get started without licensing for the time being? And I pointed her in the direction of creating a dev environment and all that stuff. Power App is a great opportunity as well. We talked about Power App in the past, so also in the show. And for those of you who are listening to us, don't miss the chance to sign up for that, because it's a great way to do it. But still, you more often than not get stuck in your Power Platform journey. What should you do when you get stuck?
Yeah, it's a good question. One of the great places to turn is, and we're not just saying this because we work for Microsoft, but the forums, right? The Power Platform community that Microsoft hosts, it is a really good place, right? The stats I heard were that they are answered within 24 hours, or they are responded to within 24 hours and answered within 48 hours on average when you post a question there. And many of the quite common questions are already answered. And when you search in Bing or Google or however you search, right? If you look, a lot of the answers will come up from the Power Apps community, because it is just such a great place for information. So I think it's an obvious one to look at. And then, of course, I like videos, right? I mean, we've all learned from Shane Young. Shane Young has covered pretty much everything that, you need to get started. And so I think videos are a great way to really kind of see it firsthand. And actually, for me, it's a great way of learning.
That's right. Andres, you want to jump in?
Yeah. What would you recommend? I have my own opinion on this, but I would love to hear yours. But to organizations out there that are, buying tons of licenses to get a lot of their user base to get to use Power Platform as a local platform and stuff like that. a part of these kind of resources, what would you recommend the organizations out there to actually drive as initiatives, nurturing activities and stuff like that? What do you think are the most effective ways for those organizations to somehow drive those folks to get more awareness and more knowledge about what they can do with a platform?
Yeah, so as you know, Andres, I mean, part of it starts with an executive sponsor with a vision, right? This is something that I talk about all the time, right? I'm very passionate about, right? This Microsoft has said for a long time that citizen developers will lead the way, but you really need a leader in the organization to really kind of be that voice of here's where we're going, here's the potential, and to celebrate success along the way. I feel very strong. And then from what we see in PowerCat, right, Andres, you can confirm, there's a big difference between organizations that have an executive sponsor and those that don't, and how successful they are and how quickly they move. More tactically, I mean, Andres, you were just talking the other day, right? Hackathons are not only so much fun, but they're a great way to learn, right? The best way to learn any technology, I think, is to scratch your own itch, right? Find something that you need fixed and build it. And so App in a Day is a great learning tool, but a hackathon is the best way to actually drive value and build something for your organization. There's no substitute for it. And also that process of gathering the ideas for the hackathon, there's a lot of value in that too, because people have to understand the platform's capabilities as a way of kind of fleshing out those ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think to your point,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, like, to your point around the communities, and if anyone is hearing us out there at Microsoft, and we've already commented this internally a couple of times as well, like one of the problems that we see out here, at least in Spanish-speaking communities, like we have here with Not Just Channel, which is one of the greatest out there, but what we see is basically the lack of Spanish content in a way, right? There's a lot of awesome, great, amazing content out there in communities and Microsoft Learn and all rest of MVPs and people that just have a some sort of itch to create content around all of this, but there's not a lot of Spanish content around all of that. So it's not a question; it's just a highlight there. Like if someone is hearing us, if someone can do something at Microsoft to basically empower more the Spanish speaking community, which is not small, by the way, as the numbers can indicate. Definitely, it would be great to see that the kind of investment from Microsoft moving forward somehow to help with that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree. I was thinking about something that happened to me many years ago, but I think it's something that still happens, not just in Spain, but probably all over the world. That is how IT departments, and I think I know for a fact that this is a problem that's been acknowledged by Microsoft, but how IT departments find out about the Power Platform, because this guy from the accountant department finds that there is something called Power Apps or something called Power Automate, because there is an E3 license provisioned, and start building stuff. It grows department, almost enterprise level, and then IT department finds that and starts like freaking out about it. Then there are two different approaches for that from the IT perspective. One is embrace it, and the other one is reject it. I've suffered the later, the second one. So for those IT projects that have been rejecting the Power Platform when they found about it, what can we tell them? What can we tell those IT departments that are like seeing the Power Platform more as maybe as a threat to their jobs? I don't know what they have in their minds, but that's the case.
I'm curious, for that customer you worked with, like why did they reject it? I mean, did they view it as shadow IT or a threat, and how did they turn everything off without people screaming?
This is my own story, because I didn't work for a partner back then. I worked for final customer, and that's how I switched. I did the career switching, and yeah, I started building. It kept growing. People loved the applications I was building. And then it went through the whole organization. We're talking about 5K people, and yeah, the IT people, when they saw that, they said, okay, this information should be secure the right way, because I didn't have licenses, so I had to do it in SharePoint, all that kind of stuff. And well, I don't want to get down the rabbit hole with this, but pretty much they opposed what I did, but they didn't kill the solution, so it was like an even outcome of that. But that's what happened. And on the other side, we have, for instance, Javier Espasa, who was here in the channel. He's a manager in Repsol, and they did a hackathon this week, or a couple of weeks ago. Andres was there.
I heard about it.
And it was like the quite opposite of what I experienced. So yeah, my message, or maybe you can add something to that, Phil, is for those who are rejecting the Power Platform, you are not doing yourselves a favor.
And I think it's not a stance you can take for a very long time. Like the customers that we see, even, Andres and I work with customers that have actually invested a significant amount in Power Platform, right? These are customers that have bought premium licensing, and they bought it at a large scale. But even for those that we see coming in through, that are still evaluating Power Platform, the questions that we're getting from executives aren't, do I need a low-code strategy? It is, what is my low-code strategy, right? And that's why I was asking you the questions on, like, what was their reasoning for turning it off? Because most of the organizations we see, they aren't saying that they have an option of having a low-code platform involved in their strategy or their IT strategy or not. They're saying which platform and what is my strategy for making it successful and secure.
Okay, that links to what I wanted to ask you, because it's about governance. It's about you mentioned, or Andres mentioned before, Manuela. I think those of us who have been involved somehow with governance and nurturing have tried the COE starter kit.
Yeah.
How did that thing started?
So I actually asked Manuela this question because this predates my time on the teams before I joined PowerCat. Okay. And the answer surprised me. So let me share a little bit of the history. So it was actually Denise on our team. You probably haven't seen any of the videos or all that, but Denise does a ton of work all over the tools that we produce. And she did the first, took some of the first APIs and made them into the PowerShell commandlets. And then she wrote the first set of admin connectors. And then with those connectors available, right, what Manuela told me is that customers started, trying to use them or asking how to use them to manage Power Apps. Right? This was early days, probably, I think 2018 or so, right? So people, organizations are trying to figure out how to really try to implement some automated governance. And then from there, it came to PowerCat, right? Because a lot of these were our customers, and write the initial version of the COE starter kit. And that also came from Denise. And then from what I heard, from what Manuela told me, is that there was a white paper on how to set up admin and governance, this document. And this administrator at Virgin Airlines named Manuela saw it and said it's no good. And eventually she joined PowerCat and rewrote it and took over, and now she owns kind of the strategic direction of the COE starter kit, and here we are today. Okay,
cool story. Because one of the things I love about the COE starter kit is that it's built on low code. It's so great. It's
amazing, yeah.
It is. Okay, I was asking Phil about the fact that many people or customers end up thinking that the COE starter kit getting installed means you have governance in your company. I think that's something that happens not just in Spain, but everywhere else, right?
Yeah, and I think part of it too is we often talk about building a center of excellence, right? And so it's the same name as the tool. It is confusing, and I'm curious, Andres, what you think too. But some of the ways, like we kind of help, at least when we're working with our large customers, is to help them pass this as we ask them questions like, what are you going to do if someone wants to use a connector that isn't included in your data loss protection policy, right? That starts to get them thinking about, I actually need procedures and exception policies. Just some questions on, to bringing them some of the questions that they're going to get, not now, but 6 months from now, so that they can help shape some of those policies and understand that the COE Starter Kit is a tool that will help them answer those questions, but it does not have the answers, right? It is just a template of what we've learned from some of our biggest customers.
Yeah, because
100% agree.
usually what we find is that, or for instance, in my case, I've struggled with making customers understand how important it is to have people fully dedicated to the government and development of the platform within their organizations. Is there a way that comes out of your mind that we can truly make them understand this concept, to make them engage with the Power Platform and convince customers to let's say spend human resources on it?
Yeah. Yeah, there is no one. I wish there was one magic formula that
I guess
we could see, because even if you look at like the large customers we work with, their organizations are vastly different, right? We have customers with tens of thousands of users that have 2 or 3 people running the platform, and then a lot of the day-to-day is out in the business, right? Where people are building apps or supporting apps or things like that, right? These kind of decentralized or hub and spoke models. And then we have other organizations that have a team of 40, right? That does everything from setting up a custom connector catalog against APIs, right? Setting up ALM and managing it, even, thankfully managing adoption and training and change management and all that kind of stuff. So you're 100% right, of course, right? You do need people managing this, but the size and structure of the team does vary so much across organizations, which makes it hard for us to write a single paper that says, here is the answer you need, right?
100%. Yeah. I feel, but we've worked with customers that have like 140, 150K licenses distributed around the company, and they only have one person that is working with some augmented staff from a partner. And we've worked with customers that have, less than 50K licenses, and they have a team of like 20 people there working and doing amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And then, the whole concept about fusion teams that we've touched here in the channel a few times as well comes into game and into all of that. But yeah, it's a quite interesting variation that we see across customers when it comes to Power Platform adoption in that sense. I'm gonna bring some goodness from the chat that we've I'm not sure, Nacho, are you okay with that?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I'm gonna think we have here, so Michael Ox is here. If you guys need a ALM expert, Michael is your go-to person. He's one of the brains behind the ALM Accelerator as well. So go for it and start asking him questions in the chat. I'm sure he will be happy to answer. If not, follow him on Twitter. He's quite good to follow. Sarah Bennett said, like, how do we get clients to work with the PowerCat team? Not sure if you want to answer that one, Phil.
Oh, sorry, I was talking about Mike. What was the question again?
How do clients get to work with the PowerCat team?
Yeah, so PowerCat, we actually go and we seek out the customers we work with. So they're customers that meet a certain bar for a number of licenses, or how much they invest in Power Platform premium licenses, basically. And so if you work with customers inside Microsoft, one day you'll get an email that says, hey, your customer qualifies for PowerCat, and here's the kind of thing we can help you do, right? So it's, we do have some programs that our internal teams can nominate for, but in general, we come find you.
Great stuff. Ismail is asking here, are there any real cats in PowerCat? The team mascot is more than clear.
So we have an internal chat for our team, and it is got to be Microsoft's best source for cat jokes and cat puns anywhere. We take the name cat very seriously. We have a weekly meeting that ends with cats meowing a song. We for everyone that's on a video or that writes a document, they get a Posker, like an Oscar award, but it's the Poskers. So are there real cats? Yeah, there are many pets that are celebrated on this team's channel, but I promise you cannot make more cat jokes than we make inside this team. It's just, we've got you beat.
Okay, so things are in the inside, like we people in the outside dream they are, right?
Oh yeah, there's so many cat. What our team in our internal training site is the University, right? University, but University.
Okay.
I mean, it's great.
I have to
love it.
confess, me not being a big fan of cats. I've never had cats in my life, but it was a bit hard to understand when I joined the team. But then you actually get into it. It's really fun how everything has to do with cats. That's really cool. By the way, I have a curiosity to ask. The PowerCat logo, right, that I'm seeing in your T-shirt right now. Like I've been in the team 1 year, so I'm going to ask you this because I have no idea. I have one as well. I got it from Phil when I joined. By the way, he was my mentor when I joined the PowerCat team with Manuela. The paw that we have drawn there, is each square meant to be one part of the Power Platform, or was it meant to be one part of the Power Platform?
I don't know. Actually, this came from Mehdi, our fellow cat.
We should ask him. We
should ask him. I don't know. I mean, when this was created, there were fewer parts of Power Platform.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking the other day. It's like, where's Power Pages representation in our logo? If that was
might even be before Power Virtual Agents. I think. Like
you're right. You're right.
So
I had that curiosity, anyways. White Column says here, like, I have the opportunity to help with an initiative in my company to teach small groups of STEM childs. Like, that's really cool. Really cool initiative. Really cool. An opportunity to be involved in. We have Alberto Castro. Like, Alberto Castro is one of the
governance gurus, I'd say, here in Spain.
Yeah, he's the governance guru here in Spain. He works for one of the big boys in the Spanish industry. And basically he always has like a really good question to make in all the streams, so which I love. And what he's asking this time is like, what do you think about managed environments? What's your perception about it? Is this convert all contain of the environments to premium with the additional costs? Could it be a negative impact to an organization to go ahead with Power Platform? That's we don't talk about licensing, I think you said, but I'm gonna leave it there.
So if you watch tomorrow's video is on managed environments. I'm just uploading it now. You'll see this. Yeah. So I asked Evan and Zohar, Anders, you know Evan Zohar well. I asked them that licensing question, and we dive into this enough that I had to draw diagrams and all that to explain it, because I was like, this. I had my wife watch it. I'm like, does this make sense? And she's like, it's gonna need graphics. The thing with managed environments, though, right? Because we get that question quite a lot, and they answer it in the video as well. But we get the question a lot is like, why does it require licensing? But when you understand like what's behind this, right? Like the telemetry and a lot of the things that are behind it, right? They do cost us money to stand up Azure services, right? One of the things we track in Power Platform is what is our Azure bill every month, and how do we balance that with, you know, how much we're getting in licensing, right? Because it's a business like anything else. And so providing managed environments does have a cost behind it, and it's intended for those customers that are using Power Platform at a scale that they're getting value from it, right? That they have enough licensing to put managed environments where it counts, and can use the controls that are growing, right? Evan said that they doubled the number of features in managed environments. We showed them in the video, but that can benefit from the types of reports and visibility that it provides, as well as some of the controls. Yeah, so it is a controversial stance, and don't think that we didn't discuss it a lot right before managed environments came out, but there is a logical reason for that. And there's also a real need for recouping some of the cost that we put into it.
Mm-hmm. I'm really looking forward to that video. I have to say that, and Alberto, if you can give it a look, because I'm sure some of the questions that you have about them are going to be answered in there. And also, let's not forget, like the initial set of features that were shipped with managed environments might have not justified somehow that for some people, and I'm not discussing that. I think, you know, something like Power Pipelines for me already justifies it in at least in those kind of organizations that struggle with ALM, for sure.
There's new pipelines features coming that they talk about. Yeah,
exactly, right. So I think managed environments, the licensing discussion is going to digress as soon as these new features come into play and they demonstrate the value of the feature, right? So hopefully we will change that conversation to be more of a, you know, when are these other features going to come to make it even better, right? Somehow, but yeah, we'll get there.
I think this is a pretty common discussion too, like with an audience like this that is on the cutting edge. Just like, you know, does Microsoft keep all this stuff secret until we build up all these features and then we have a, you know, big release, or do we release it months earlier and let you in on the early side, right? 100%. I would rather have that one, but it does lead to these conversations on, well, where are the other features that I need?
Yeah, and I totally agree with Andres. I think we are at early stages of managed environments. Like they're gonna keep adding new features and gonna keep adding value to that, and people will don't care about paying the licenses if it's so good or give us or save us so much effort and so much time. But also
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that somehow with the Power Platform we are used to the other version of things, like you get features for free, and it's not gonna be like that forever,
I think that's true, and we track internally, how many organizations are turning on managed environments and that are not just experimenting with it but using it across multiple environments. The market seems to be speaking that it's something that they need, right? We are seeing it more and more and more in our customers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. There are some questions in the chat, like Sandra and Diego are asking about the future of the Power Platform. Ooh. Open question, but feel free to answer whatever comes through your mind.
And in case it helps Phil to answer that question, like Sandra was going to go a bit more into details in the future of Power Apps at an enterprise level.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I think there was another question that I saw in the chat around the openness of Power Platform. Like I think White Gollum was saying, like, my intention is to teach technology in a practical way. I was wondering, how can I get the Power Platform in the loop? Because the consumption of the things you create are very focused on internal people rather than somehow external consumption, like other local platforms might focus on, right? So I think those kind of three questions kind of correlate somehow, but I'm not sure if that helps you in a way.
Yeah, I mean, on the internal and external, right? Power Platform is designed for business applications, right? Even Pages, which has the external facing side, right? It's designed to collect data from people outside of your company and typically, feed that data to processes that are inside your organization. So I think for the type of apps that you build in Power Apps, they are focused on a business, and they will, we're not going to be the next Instagram or something like that, right? You're not going to build that on Power Platform. As far as the future of Power Apps, I don't know if anyone's heard of Copilot. It's
first time. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, first time. Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunity for artificial intelligence, both in two ways, right? One, to help people build, right? I mentioned my wife was going through Power Up, and I saw the ways that like Power Apps ideas and some of that helped her. It's amazing how it changed the learning curve. Mm-hmm. We're just now getting started. So I think there's all this opportunity to help take ideas and people's thoughts and concepts and turn them into apps and make that more effective. But then there's also when you're running the app, right? Like the Copilot control and things like that make it easier to explore an app without having to click on buttons. And Boost for Power Virtual Agents, which is like magic, right? It will like know everything about your company's website and answer questions. So a lot of the future has to do with taking these artificial intelligence capabilities and really just putting them to use in a way that few organizations can, than Microsoft, right, with access to OpenAI and the foundational technologies behind all of this that we host in Azure. But I think the flip side of it goes back to that earlier question around enterprise scale, right? If you look at like the conversations that Andres and I and the team are having with the teams building this, it's not just about chasing the next feature. It's about building scale and making this platform resilient against all sorts of things that can go wrong, right? Like we had technical difficulties here, right? We're designing and looking forward to 1 billion users, right? There are 1 billion users on Microsoft 365 on Office. We see that all of those will eventually be running Power Apps, and we need a platform that will scale to that level and sustain for that. And that's when we design features, that's what we're looking at, is that level of scale and resiliency.
Yeah. The task is definitely titanic, and it has to grow robust and flexible, and has to empower everyone to do more.
I'm curious what Andres thinks, though. Yeah,
I was going to say, like, the question about the future of Power Apps is quite complicated, right? Because I mean, things change so drastically every quarter or every 6 months because of a pandemic or because of artificial intelligence ramping up and stuff like that. And sometimes we kind of forget about the day-to-day things that we do in the platform that we don't realize that could be done in a low-code fashion, right? And I'm thinking about power cards. Like, the people designing adaptive cards might have never thought about that they could do it in a low-code fashion, right? And all of a sudden, the Power Apps teams throws us power cards, which is a low-code way of creating power cards. And now you can integrate with Power Automate. You can do triggers and actions and stuff like that with low code, right? And I think we're still exploring all this stuff that we do in our day-to-day jobs and how they could be done in a low-code fashion as well. And somehow we're not losing focus on that. To the question around focused on internal, definitely, right? Enterprise level, internal. Although we do have the wrap functionality, which allows you to publish an app in app stores in an easy way, right? I'm not saying it's super easy today. It obviously has its own complexities as a process, but there is a way you can do that. Fine, our licensing model is probably not going to help you do that in an effective way or from a cost efficiency perspective. But I think, again, at the end of the day, is like there's a lot of focus on the AI stuff. That's a buzzword nowadays. But we also, I loved seeing your video the other day that you published around adaptive cards, right? Where the folks were basically walking us through all the integration stuff with Power Automate. Like, the first time I used Power Cards, like, oh, gosh, I need to trigger some Power Automate flows there, right? And stuff like that. And, having access to more and more connectors with a pass of time directly from there is like, these kind of small things are going to kind of, I also think, change the way, low code penetrates in these organizations somehow, right? Because you might never know about something that you do in your day-to-day job that could be done in a low code fashion, right? So I think it's, again, circling back to the question around what's the future of Power Apps. It's always a complicated one because of the level of change, and also that we kind of lose visibility about those small things that somehow grouped together do have a big impact, right? At the end of the day, for sure.
And I'm glad you brought up adaptive cards too, because that video was, that video was months in the making, kept getting postponed because they had more and more features. And I think adaptive cards are one of those things that's going to be this glue across the platform. And they're so powerful and yet so not really well known and well understood, at least in low code, right? And you can see them coming now in Power Virtual Agents, right? They're already in Power Automate, now in Power Apps. And if you heard in that video too, he says, like, Instagram embeds them in their app, right? Adaptive cards, right? There's a lot of potential for adaptive cards as that functionality evolves, Power Cards and such, right? They are amazing.
And just to add another one into the future of Power Apps, I think there's a lot of focus going into making apps look better, right? Making them look good somehow. And, our studio team with Clay leading all of that is doing an amazing job at introducing tons of innovation on how apps can be designed, like modern controls, which is a take of what our team has initially created with a creator kit, and bringing that natively into the product. That's going to change the way we design apps and make them look better. But I know there's a lot of improvements coming into how you do responsive design into applications and stuff like that, which are gonna be a game changer, right? Again, it also depends on the role that we're looking at, right? Like, maybe
it's hard to answer at the platform level.
Exactly. At platform level is quite complicated, because now we need to think like somehow the Power Platform is no longer used by Dynamics 365 guys that kind of transition to Power Apps, right? Now we have all sorts of profiles like business analysts, citizen development, right? It touches all kind of angles, but you also have designers looking into all of this that might give more importance to the design side of things than the actual logic implementation, all this kind of stuff. But anyways, that's my take on it for sure.
Okay, I have one question here, I have a few in the chat. First of all, I want to say hi to everyone in the audience, because we have people from not just Spain, but also from America, Latin America, New Zealand, so pretty much around the globe. Yeah, exactly. So very happy to see that.
Yeah, so we were talking about GitHub Copilot, and is that going to make coding so easy that people don't need low code? I don't see it that way, right? I think Copilot wherever it is, right? Whether it's in Power Apps or in GitHub, is a way of making whoever uses that tool more effective. And we've seen that in stats for GitHub Copilot, right? It's like, I can't remember the exact stat, but it's well over 50% of the people that use it say it makes them significantly more productive. But GitHub Copilot is only useful if you understand the programming language that it's helping you create, right? And for a lot of the folks that build apps in low code, they don't understand a programming language, right? I mentioned earlier my wife that is going through Power Up and learning Power Apps, right? She has no programming language, but she still benefits from GitHub, from Copilot on Power Apps, right? Because she can type in natural language of the app she wants and she can build it. So if anything, I see them complementing their individual audiences, right? Whether it's in GitHub or Power Apps, but I definitely don't see them competing in any ways.
And also, let's not forget that it's not only development to get something published online for ready for consumption, right? There's the hosting of the code, the whole entire DevOps conversation and stuff like that, which there's no Copilot for that as yet. I might have given $1 million idea out that I should have not said before, but there's no Copilot for DevOps just yet. There might be one in the future. Let's see. But the ease of being able to do an app and then just making it available to thousands of people in your organization is not that doable with Copilot for sure.
All right, Copilot, AI, it's all, everybody's talking about it. For me, I gotta say that one of the things that I really look forward, it's a very simple thing, but I really like it, which is the ability to create bulk data with Copilot. I really like that because sometimes you have to spend some time to, in order to show something to a customer, you have to start creating like manually all the stuff to make it look like it's close to real. So having that, it's a tiny thing, but I like it. And Andres showed us the other day how Copilot works in Power Apps, and it's looking very promising. We know we are at the early stages of it. We know it's, I think that the main thing we are looking forward to is to have the ability to create multiple tables, not just one table. That would be very nice, just in case the right person is hearing us right now. Can we share what does Microsoft do with the data that they throw to things like Copilot or GPT models? Can we do we know if they store the data, or how do they don't, or how does this work?
Yeah, I can definitely talk to that. And I would say, you're wishing for be able to create multiple tables from Copilot. I mean, wouldn't you want to like select all the buttons in an app and say change these all to this format? Or
yeah,
I mean, you could dream so much bigger, Nacho, than just write multiple tables, right? There's like just imagine, right? Like if you have an app or if you could say group these or change all of these to a different theme or match the theme on this other app. I mean, there's yeah, you can dream a lot bigger.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah,
you're definitely right.
And Anders and I have the advantage of we're not making up all these ideas, right? These are there's good stuff coming. How is the data used? So we do not store any of the data, right? The GPT model is just a model, right? Mm-hmm. Like a calculator, right? And so your data comes in, it calculates it, and it gives you a result back. Mm-hmm. But your data is not used to train the model. The model is already trained. Your data is not stored in the model. And so, I think, we've got this whole responsible AI concept that provide more information on that we take very seriously, and all of the apps are audited. But in short, that's a very common question, right? Your data is not being stored in the model or being used to train it going forward.
Mm-hmm. I was having this fun conversation with someone the other day, and he was asking me about this, like, oh, I'm pretty sure you guys store all the data of what I'm asking Copilot to train that model and make it way better and stuff like that. No, we don't. It's like, you must be storing it and using it to retrain the model and make it way better. It's like, no, we don't. It's like, oh, I'm pleased to hear that. Like, my
still doesn't believe you.
Would be happier that way that you don't start. But but then how are you going to make it better for me if you're not using my data to trace it? It's always like a double-edged sword somehow, right?
Yeah.
Like people don't want you to be using their data, which I perfectly understand, right? For training purposes. Somehow, as you said, these are massively pre-trained models that are available out there for everyone. But then people also obviously want ChatGPT to become more efficient for their organization somehow, and obviously for that, somehow you need to provide that information to train the model. So it's always a complicated conversation when it comes to the data storage side of things, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, part of what we do is we restrict the model, right? Like the prompts inside the code that get sent to the model with your commands, right? They tell it not to answer anything that's outside of the scope of the app, so that you can't ask it, ChatGPT questions and get an answer, right? It will say it doesn't know, because it is being constrained to only what the topic is at hand, right? Power Apps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other day, back in Seattle, I was with two fellow Spanish MVPs, and we were testing some stuff in ChatGPT, and they wrote down like make a brief description of what Power Apps is, and ChatGPT answered. Then we copied that and we asked ChatGPT, did you write this in a different session, in a different device? Did you write this text? And ChatGPT says, yes, I wrote that.
Wow.
You can try it. You can try it. And then we tried to fool ChatGPT, like changing a couple of words. We pasted it again and said, did you wrote this, like changing 2 words? And ChatGPT says, I wrote something very similar to that.
Oh, that's creepy. Wow.
It's scary but interesting at the same time.
It's super interesting.
Like how does it do that? Like, and that's why, because you mentioned like having a development in AI that it's ethic. I think it's if AI is ethic or there is no AI, like it's gonna get way too crazy. So yeah, totally on that. And yeah, go ahead, and also for the audience, do the test. Right, ask ChatGPT for something, and then ask ChatGPT if it did write that.
And what's fascinating too is, remember, we're only a few months into this, right? ChatGPT came out in November.
Yeah.
Just imagine, like, if we were to redo this conversation at the end of this year, right? We can't even imagine like where we'll be then.
It's
I don't remember the figures, but I was looking at some charts. I'm not sure where these were. I'm assuming they're internal. I'm not sure how much I should be talking about them, but I don't think they're kind of any secret for anyone. But there was some charts talking about the adoption that it took for products to arrive to a certain amount of millions of users.
Now, yeah,
100 million
users. Yeah.
Some of the products were like years, and tons of years and stuff like that. And ChatGPT was like a couple of weeks, couple of months.
Yeah, 2 months.
There. Yeah, which is impressive. Yeah. It's impressive.
Yeah, and what's interesting too, our leader Ryan Cunningham runs Power Apps. He tells a story about how that model that runs ChatGPT had been around for 18 months.
Yeah. And
it was only when this chat interface was put on top of it that the world started talking about it, right? And I think that says a lot about how important the UI on top of all of this technology, including AI, is, right? Which is why having it available in Power Apps is so important, right? Because it makes it super easy to put a UI on top of these really, really complex models.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed.
Really good point.
Okay. So people are asking here, I think it was White Column, if it wasn't you, sorry, I don't know who answered that, but I read it somewhere, asking about the modern controls. In general, how are we planning to like revamp look and feel on Canvas? Because when I looked at first at modern controls, or if I go back a little bit further, when you put a classic control in Power Apps, our customers always go, okay, this is too big. Buttons are too big.
And it looks like a Canvas app. You look at it like, oh, that's a Canvas
yeah,
app.
and I say,
and
I say on Canvas apps, I say, okay, it's big for a reason. If you have it in a mobile device, you really want to be able to click on it. If you make it smaller, you're gonna struggle with it. And then I kind of find the middle point of too small, too big, to make it work also for the user experience as well. But modern controls, I've seen them. I haven't tried them, but I've seen them. I've seen they are like much nicer, but at the same time, I have a little bit of doubt with if people are going to be able to like really click on the slicer or really click on the button, because I don't know if I'm gonna see myself again resizing buttons and making like maybe a screen to get the right size for the buttons and for all the controls, and then copy and pasting those controls in the rest of my Canvas application. What can you tell us about the modern controls?
And that's interesting. That's how you see them as far as being able to interact with them. So the modern controls started out as some work that PowerCat was doing with some of our customers, building PCF controls for their apps, right? Controls that didn't exist in Power Apps. And then the tool that Mike Ox, who's on here, is the team that he is in, took those and built the Creator Kit. So a lot of those controls and more are in there. And most of these controls are built on Fluent UI. And if you haven't heard of Fluent UI, that's what, when you go use Office, Microsoft 365, right? That look and feel, that's Microsoft's UI standard, which is called Fluent. And so a lot of those Fluent controls, which already existed and had already been used for a long time, were then turned into the Creator Kit. And those are starting to appear as the modern controls, almost like one for one lift into Canvas apps and into Power Apps. And one of the things that's great about those controls is that they support localization, they support accessibility at a high level. And so usually what we hear is that they're better, right? Because they do have such a strong foundation for those types of things, that they provide a better experience besides just look and feel.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it and I said, okay, finally 2023 controls. That was my feeling, totally. So yeah, really looking forward to trying them out.
And like here in the chat too, right? Tabs, finally.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah, that's fine.
That comment actually rings a bell, because in the last stream we did like a challenge, Phil, around designing apps that don't look like Power Apps, and you should see some of the results from that. They were pretty amazing. But we were then talking a bit about modern controls, and I remember someone saying, like, how did Reza from the PowerCat team add images to those tabs? And I just wanted to, because that buzz question has been in my head since the minute that someone asked that in the chat. It's like, he added emojis. It's not like an actual
so
image. He just added emojis to the text, and that's it. So just wanted to answer that, because that's been buzzing my head since the last stream. I just wanted to let it out.
It's an old model-driven app trick too, right? To take the tabs and add those in there. Yeah.
And just to add to Nacho's feedback around the size of the controls, like I felt that as well, to be completely honest. Like, that we're used to these size text fields in the screen. We've now gone to this. Like, what's going to be the complexity for users having to tap on controls and stuff like that? I think that is some feedback that has already been given by some customers as well on respecting the minimum heights and widths for, like, I'm not sure what the term is for the UX out there that might see us and start screaming when I say this, but the clickiness or the touchability of the controls or whatever. But there's definitely some work being done on understanding how we can somehow adapt the controls and make it easier, so you don't have to go ahead and start resizing the controls, the modern controls and stuff like that, to make it work somehow. It will be interesting, though, to see what is the migration path, if there is going to be any at the end of the day, or if it's going to just simply require you to redesign the whole thing, or we're going to actually have some sort of converter or something like that that would help you transition from classic controls to modern controls and stuff like that. But
Copilot.
Yeah, exactly. That would be pretty cool, actually. It's like, convert my app to use modern controls.
We're making this up. There's nothing on the roadmap. Nobody quote us.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've talked about the future, about things that are being released right now as well, like more the present. But I want to go with a classic question, and I want the answer in Phil Topness' own words. When should I go with Canvas, and when should I do it with model driven?
Yeah, that is the age-old question, right? I'm tempted to say custom pages are your way to satisfy both sides.
No, that's
right?
not a good answer.
No, you're not going to let me off the hook. I will tell you, we have this happens pretty frequently with our customers, that they want a Canvas app because they want it to look and feel like the rest of their apps. That customer I mentioned earlier that built an app used up to the CEO and used by about 1,000 people an hour, I think, around there. And they wanted a Canvas app because they wanted to look exactly like the rest of their apps. We've had other ones that start that way, and then they realize how much faster it is to build a model-driven app, and they eventually come around to that. The typical pattern, right? I don't know, Andres, what you see. Typical pattern is your users use a Canvas app because you can make it look as they expect, and then your admins use a model-driven app because it's quick and dirty and it performs well and it's responsive and all that kind of good thing. But it's getting more and more common to see customers that wanted a Canvas app to be like, okay, well, model-driven apps get me close from the UI perspective, and they're so much faster to build. I didn't really answer your question, Nacho. But I think, I mean, I always like to say, if you can do it with a model-driven app, and you have to have a good idea for what you want your app to do to know, right? So you have to have some wireframes or all that to know if you can build it in a model-driven app. If you can, it's going to be so much faster, and you're not faster, usually faster running, by the way, but also faster to build and responsive and all that. And you're not constrained, right? You can still bring in other screens or have a pop-up or a side panel or something that is a Canvas app as well.
For me, what I will do is I just present the model-driven user interface, and if they're good with it, there are so many goodies that come along with it out of the box that saves so much time in comparison to Canvas. But at the same time, it depends on the scenario for me. If you want to have like more close to mobile application with I don't know, a cool user interface and that kind of stuff. With a few workarounds, you can really do wonders with Power Apps Canvas. I started learning with Canvas. I also love model driven, and I see the good part of it. But there's no magical answer for that. I know it was kind of a tricky question, but it's what everybody wonders before they start a project, right?
Well, and the conversation can be tricky too, right? We've had customers who are like, hey, look at everything model-driven apps can do, and they'll interpret that to say, well, Power Apps can't build the app that I designed. I'm like, well, no, it can, but you have this other option, right? And so one of these customers, we had to prove to them that they had this existing UI design standard. We had to prove to them that, you could implement that pixel perfect exactly if you want. But there are trade-offs, right? In complexity and how long it's going to take to sustain it, as well as optimizing performance and all that, right? When you start loading up a lot of controls in an app.
All right. The way that I see it, and just to add my 2 cents to that, is like I see a lot of this recurrent pattern that model-driven apps is more for a back-end side of things, whereas Canvas apps is more for the front end, for the customer user-facing side of things. But it's quite difficult sometimes to convince customers about it because they love the power of designing your app as ever you want it to look like, right? And I remember like talking to Alejandro Caranzo is one of the guys that works here in a big partner called Minsight, and he's pretty knowledgeable. He's been around for a while, and he was having some time ago a conversation with a customer trying to convince them why they should do. I mean, the customer wanted to do the back office kind of process, the back end in Canvas as well, because they enjoyed the design process and everything that had to do with him, where he was looking for efficiency to deliver something in the less time possible. And he was saying like, gosh, with model-driven apps, I could do this in 10 minutes. Why should we invest like hours to create it all in Canvas some way? So it's always an interesting conversation to have. But what I do see for sure is like you kind of see more and more like for the config back office kind of things, model-driven apps and for the rest Canvas apps. When I saw custom pages, I actually was like, my interpretation from the product team was like, oh gosh, are they really looking to break this decision making process and just make it all like one big thing somehow? And it kind of looked like that, but then I don't know, it does seem like it's not exactly that somehow. I don't know. That was my interpretation at the time, but obviously custom pages bring so much goodness into the model-driven space, but there are still these quite fixed design concepts that you cannot work around somehow and when using custom pages as well. But it brings the goodness from both sides, but you cannot get rid of one side still to make it work. But anyways, it will be interesting to see how that develops.
And I guess we should mention like the clearest indications, your data source, right? Like, you know, if you're model-driven app, you're focused on Dataverse or now, you know, SQL or SharePoint, right? With the virtual table providers, or you know, if you're going to hook up your own virtual table, you've got more flexibility. Whereas Canvas Apps gives you all the connectors. So that's like usually the number one dividing line between which one you choose between those two.
Yeah,
so I think it goes without saying.
Yeah, sometimes I miss in custom pages some of the functionalities, like the full capabilities that you get in Canvas.
Yes.
But apart from that, I think it's great to have that flexibility of being able to do some of the good parts of the Canvas world into a model-driven. But again, for me, my experience, I started with Canvas. I think most of people here in the audience in my channel started with Canvas as well, because, you know,
it's pretty common.
I've heard it lately, but I've been always saying that it's like Excel and PowerPoint had a kit.
Yep.
That's
it.
That's
feels like it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then going through the path of model-driven can get a little bit tricky if you are a citizen dev, but it's totally worth it. It's totally worth it. It's totally worth it.
In Canvas Apps, you've got freedom to write all the power effects you want, so you can really affect the logic and all that. I mean, it definitely does have attractive features.
Okay,
I feel like we should.
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like we should answer Antonio's question about concurrent users. This is a terrific question, and I think Antonio, your question is, you know, can Power Apps do 1,000 concurrent users, right? And a lot of the answer to that question relies on the app you're building, right? A model-driven app, I mean, yeah, no problem, right? We far beyond that. On a Canvas app, right? If you imagine a Canvas app with no connectors, it is just a JavaScript framework app running in your browser, and it's going to run locally, right? So it can do as many users as you need. So really, the difference comes into then the connections behind that. And when we start talking with users about, we get this question all the time from our customers. It comes down to what is running behind this, and sometimes this is what the customer is running, right? This customer with this big app I was talking about, they had an Oracle database they were running through an on-premise data gateway. Well, at that point, then whether you can do 1,000 concurrent users has to do with how you have structured your data gateway and the database behind it. It has nothing to do with Power Apps. It would affect any app you were building on top of that. And so the 1,000 concurrent user question is pretty complicated, but it often doesn't have anything to do with Power Apps, but all of the foundational technology that you're connecting to with Power Apps.
Okay.
I don't know, Andres, any thoughts?
I can't add much more to that, Phil. I think it was pretty spot on. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Antonio says he's using only custom tables and app passes, but again, it's not on the Power App side, so yeah. That's
the only thing I would say is, like, you know, for those that are worried about scalability, you know, we work at Microsoft. We have that luck that we can see into the telemetry data, and we can certainly tell you there's tons of applications that have way more than 10,000 than 1,000 concurrent users on them today, and they're running nicely, right? So obviously, as Phil was saying, like if that application gets more complicated with integrations, on-premise data gateways and stuff like that, you might be suffering issues that you might have suffered with classic development approach as well, right? And stuff like that. So you know, when you start integrating with other data sources, you always need to take into account not only the scalability of your Power App, you also need to take into account the mechanism that you use to integrate and the data source that you're actually integrating with, right? So those are all factors that weigh into the architecture decision that you need to make on how scalable it gets. So yeah, again, just bring a peace of mind into Antonio's questions. Like, we certainly have customers running apps with way more than 1,000 users today in the platform, and they're not having any issue whatsoever.
Yeah. And Antonio mentions custom tables, right? If you are using Dataverse as your backend, as your data source, then we are monitoring it. We are adding indexes where they're needed. We are adding more, you know, we're increasing the amount of horsepower, the amount of power behind the database, right? And that's happening constantly behind the scenes. So
I would just say, like, if people are interested on getting a bit more visibility, what goes back to stages on Dataverse, or things like Nacho, maybe we can, or maybe you want to do something in your channel about it, and I will be more than happy to help. But maybe we can target some of these discussions in one of our next streams as well to bring some more clarity on how things work behind the stage.
Yeah, that's something that's always very interesting to look at, and yeah, totally. In next streams we will talk about it. Antonio is saying here, ChatGPT told me no limits. I don't know if ChatGPT told you that overall, like in general, but or regarding what you were saying. But
I mean, there are limits, but the odds of you hitting them are pretty small.
Yeah. we had a limit on custom tables, for example, right? Like you can only have 1,500 custom tables, but I think that was recently increased to 3,000 as well and stuff like that. So limits are always there, but they're also slowly but steady increasing with the progress of technology somehow. But obviously limits need to be there for a good reason, for sure.
I think one of the very first questions I heard about Copilot when it was announced, it was, how is it going to help me with delegation?
Yeah.
Classic stuff.
I don't, that would be nice. I think the help for delegation isn't going to come from Copilot, but I do believe delegation is going to get easier.
Yeah, that would be a nice one for Copilot as well. Like, get rid of any delegation warnings in my app.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least,
or at least help people better understand it too.
Yeah, yes. or give me suggestions how to change an operator or something to get rid of the warning. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, how can I do this in a delegable way? Yeah,
that'd be great. Okay, I think we're coming to a close now because it's getting kind of late here in Spain. We like to stay up late, so we're more than used to this. But Andres, I don't know if you have anything else for Phil.
Yes, I have one thing, Phil, that I wanted to ask you, and you tell me if it's possible or not. You are the social master of Power Platform in Microsoft. So
I know this is a setup because you and I talk all the time, and you could have asked me this anytime you wanted.
So basically, Nacho and I were thinking, like, we want to feel the love, right, from the Power Platform social channel. Somehow the Spanish community, the Spanish speaking community wants to feel the love, and obviously, as we mentioned before, right, there's not a lot of Spanish content out there, Spanish community as well. So we
I will
want
note that this also is not Spanish language content. I'm sorry for that.
Next time it will be in Spanish.
I'll keep practicing.
So we wanted to see if there was any chance that in one of your next videos you could throw us some sort of like wink to the Spanish, Spanish speaking community. So maybe, Nacho and I were thinking, like, maybe let's make like a big flag with all the Spanish speaking countries out there, so you can put it back there. But then we said, like, oh, how are we going to ship that to Washington? It's going to be quite complicated. But anyways, we thought, like, maybe, when the next introduction that you do to one of your videos where you say the famous "Welcome to PowerCat Live," we can get like a "Bienvenidos to PowerCat Live" or something like that.
Yeah,
I could do that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So cool.
The next one I record, I will do that. Now, remember, there's a lag between, like, the one that's coming out tomorrow was recorded a few weeks ago, right? So you'll have to, people have to keep watching to see this. But yeah, I will definitely do this. This is a terrific idea.
Okay, so yeah, I'll ask the people to keep an eye, and I look for the videos, and hopefully we can get that representation of the Spanish-speaking community in one of the next videos. That would be awesome. That would be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. We'll be vigilantes about it. We'll be watching every video that comes out in the Power Platform channel. Looking forward to it, but we already do that. We already see and we'll see the Power Platform channel and watch all the videos. But by the way, a shout out to Hugo and David for the Power Platform connections. I love it. I gotta say, I love it. They're really, really good content. But again, Phil, thank you so much for being here. We will invite you again in a few months, so you can practice Spanish in the meantime. And then after that time goes by, you come here again and we can have a conversation again in English.
Yes, your expectations are appropriate for my ability to learn a language.
I just want to say, Phil, thanks for making the time. You're such a great manager. Let me tell you that. Like, I'm super. No, I'm just.
Where,
I'm
where
not
is this
joking.
going?
It's the right place. It's the right place to say it.
Your reviews here shortly. I see how this is going. Now you
Anyways.
see how Microsoft really works on the inside.
Thanks for making the time, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Appreciate
appreciate the invitation, and I'm glad this channel exists. The Spanish language community is important to us, and Andres can attest. It is, and especially the Spanish language market is growing for us, right? With more and larger customers and customers of the PowerCast.
Yeah.
taking over.
That's a good point. Yeah.
This is very important for us as a business as well. So thank you for doing this.
Okay, so I'll address the audience now. Amigos, gracias por pasaros. Ha estado genial tener aquí a Phil. Recordad que el próximo lunes tenemos el Power Show también. Así que no os lo perdáis, que recordad que tenemos el reto de que presentéis vuestra solución que aporta valor. Preguntadme por LinkedIn o preguntarle a Andrés, que estamos disponibles. Y nada, lo dicho, nos vemos el próximo lunes. Adiós. Phil, say adiós.
Adiós.
Adiós, amigos.